Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 7th episode on the Books and Beyond series on NPStation. Today, we have a special guest joining us. She is a software engineer, a writer, and a STEM education advocate. So she also is the author of the book Coding for Kids Python. This book is actually pretty popular on my YouTube channel as I have a coding series made up of 21 videos where I go chapter by chapter through the book. Everyone, please welcome Miss Adrienne Tacke.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Neha. Nice to be here.
It's nice to meet you finally.
Yes, this is super cool to be here this far in.
Yeah, I'm so glad that I could have you on today. So, I guess to start off, would you mind introducing yourself to our viewers?
Sure, you did a pretty good job of that already. I am a software engineer, have been in STEM for, probably over 10 years now, and I really enjoy taking, a lot of technical concepts that might seem hard or intimidating and really breaking it down into things that are more fun or simple, because when they're more fun or more simple, it's a lot easier to understand. So that's pretty much the thing that's been driving me to the different positions I've been in tech, and yeah, I'm really happy that I'm still able to do it as a job.
That's amazing. And where are you located right now?
I'm based in Las Vegas, so everyone always gives me a weird look when I say that, but there is a lot more than just the Strip and just the hotels, and it's a pretty nice place to live once you get outside of the touristy area.
Definitely. No, I mean, California is great. The weather's always really nice over there right now.
It is getting warmer, and it's still that finicky spring weather, so we have some weird windy, rainy days, but overall getting warmer, so it's nice.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I'm located on the East Coast, and it's yeah.
Nice.
Okay, so we can just get started. But I also wanted to let you know that one of the first steps I took really getting into programming. I was honored when you wanted to send me your book. That was really start off with, and it got me interested in my book. So you said you are a software developer. Are there any tools maybe that you
Yeah, first I'd like to say that makes me really happy to hear that my book has played this part in your journey. That was kind of the wish for writing this book, so thank you for sharing that. There's a lot of things I wish I knew before starting. There are so many different things that comes with becoming a software developer, and we can talk about a whole bunch of them, right? One of them is it takes a lot of learning and relearning and learning and relearning. So you need to prepare yourself to always want to learn something new and to try to find some fun in it. As most of you know, there's so many things that change in technology and in programming specifically that if you don't try to keep up with it can get very difficult. But a big part of being successful in it is to just wanting to keep trying and not letting either some imposter syndrome or your first failure, which there's going to be a lot of failures as you go through this job, letting that knock you down. So that's one thing I wish I knew, is that it was going to be difficult in the sense that every time you did face an obstacle or a failure or some problem that you feel like, oh, I'm not smart enough to solve that, or oh, I've never encountered this before, maybe I shouldn't do this anymore. There will be moments like that that really test you, and you just got to keep moving forward, because when you push through it and you really work through the problem, that's how you actually help build your confidence. You say, oh wow, I remember like 2 weeks ago I couldn't solve this problem, and now you did, and now you're that much better for it. So that's one really big thing. Another thing, obviously, that I went through was there's not a lot of women, not a lot of girls that are in tech. So when I was in college, taking some of those focused courses, I was probably one of like 3 girls in the class, and it was not so bad in the sense that just because I was the only girl there, that it made it difficult. But what I did find was, is this going to be what it's like in the real world or in a real job? I assumed that this is just what it's going to be in school. So funnily enough, the very first job that I had a full team of women on my software development team, and that was actually quite rare. So after I left that job, I was probably again one of the only girls or women on the team, but it's slowly getting better. There are people like you who are really making a difference in getting more people involved and interested, and just kind of sharing that it's not so intimidating, and also showing that this is something that can be fun and something that you can find interest in, despite what a lot of maybe external factors might say that girls are not into STEM or things like that. So there are a lot of other things, but I think those are the 2 most important things that I wish I knew before I started my career.
Yeah, I think the gender gap in coding, or just STEM in general, is a big topic right now. It's definitely gotten better though over the years. There's so many organizations that are really working towards improving the gender gap, getting more girls into coding, especially the organization Girls in Code. They're working towards that. Their biggest goal. But you mentioned about how there's you have to just keep on pushing forward and trying over and over again. So are there any like big challenges that you remember that you
There will be moments when again, you are in an actual position and there's a lot of pressure to solve something. Either you need to work on a really big feature where you may not be experienced in the problem, or even worse, something that you wrote and have deployed into an application has broken something. And so that's probably one really large challenge that I faced. I was trying to prove myself, that I was not so much of a junior developer in this position specifically, and there were things that broke when I deployed them to production. And so it was really hard to kind of take that and own that and be accountable for that mistake, because you already have the pressure of trying to prove yourself and having feelings of imposter syndrome. But I think what really helped in that situation was to just take it step by step to see, what did I do wrong, what exactly was the problem. But not only that, you learn how to make yourself better. In this case, there were not too many tests that were around there. There were not too many processes to check that code was actually good. There were a lot of things that you learn there. So there were a lot of things that were missing. Again, like a code review process. My code was not reviewed in this particular team, which is not a great thing. And the code that I wrote, I wrote it, I said, oh, this solves the problem, it gets the job done, and that was it. I didn't consider any other factors. I didn't write any tests to make sure that it was okay. I didn't consider a lot of things about it, and so naturally it did break something. So going through those kinds of mistakes, I think in the end make you better, because now you learn, oh, you should probably write some tests around it. Oh, you should probably ask someone, if you don't have a formal code review process, ask someone to take a look at your code. All these things you learn on the go, and you learn how to have processes for yourself that make yourself better, and have checks for yourself. And then you see also what good teams and what teams that have really good safeguards in place look like. You learn all of that as you go.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I mean, I think so far, like as I've been coding, I've learned that coding has a lot to do with trial and error. There's many times where you get those errors in your code, and you just have to keep pushing to try and fix it. So I definitely agree with how you have to check with other people as well. I feel like communication is something that is very important as a software developer, which I've heard from many people. But maybe we can zoom out a bit. I mean, I heard you went to university. Was that also in California?
I actually went to university here in Las Vegas, so
Nice.
it was by chance. It was not my first choice. Like, it wasn't my dream to be a software developer, so that's something I really like to share, because a lot of people think, you need to have this interest at a very young age, which is also fine, right? But in particular, I didn't really have any role models or influences that showed me STEM was something to be interested in. So by the time I got to college, my major was actually international business, has nothing to do with STEM.
Yeah.
And the reason I switched over was the first job I had in college was for help desk, the IT help desk.
Oh.
And it was through that job that I said, oh, this is kind of interesting. You help people talk through their problems, resolving their Wi-Fi issues or resetting their passwords,
Yeah.
high-level stuff at that point. But it's the same process. You help people solve problems, so that problem-solving aspect really appealed to me. And at that same time, there was an opportunity for a software development internship, and so that's kind of what led me to actually switch my major and again, it wasn't a full computer science degree. Mine was actually called Management Information Systems, which I like to say is half business, half computer science degree.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
that's how I got into the field.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I've heard there's so many different ways that you can get into a specific major. I mean, so many people, they like change their majors in college, which I feel like is a big thing for me right now. It's like right now I'm debating which field to go into in the future, and college is coming up really quick for me. So right now I'm debating whether to go into medicine or computer science. So, I mean, are there any tips that you would want to share regarding like choosing a major, whether it be related to computer science or not in college?
That's a great question. The fact that you've already started with some programming now outside of college is a good sign. If you truly enjoy it and you say, this is something I'd want to go into further, then you might consider maybe taking one or two classes that are related to see if it further deepens your interest. If you're doing this on the side and you're like, well, this is fun as a hobby, but I don't know if I could do this every day, that's one indicator of maybe you don't want to do this. You really need to take a couple classes if you have the possibility to do it before you have to fully declare your major, because I know depending on what you declare, that dictates what classes you have to take. But if you have the option to take something that's, fully focused in medicine or fully focused in computer science, see what things about it you like and don't like. See if this is something that you could do every day. And then also talk to some of your peers to say, are there things that you like about it? Are there things you don't like about it? That would be a good way to decide whether or not you go through. And then, like you said, let's say you do initially declare medicine or computer science and you're going through some of the more focused classes. It is kind of a little bit annoying, but you can always change. You can change, depending on how far you get. It might be more costly and might be more annoying that you change because you have to make up all the courses that you didn't do. But in the end, if you've gotten that far and you find that this is not for you, then it's all the more reason to say, okay, it's okay to change because you've gone this far down one path and you decided it's actually not for you.
Yeah, that's definitely a good advice. I'll keep that in mind. College is coming around the corner, so right now I'm already trying to decide like what exactly I want to do as well as my major in college. But computer science, I mean, it's like one of the biggest things right now. Gen AI is like huge. You have ChatGPT is like the number one, I guess, thing that's super popular around the whole world. So it's developing every day. There's new apps coming out every single day about revolving around AI. So maybe we can talk more about your book, Coding for Kids Python. It's definitely been a big part of my life earlier on when I started coding. So this book that you wrote is about Python and it teaches the basics of that. So is there any particular reason why you wanted to teach kids how to code in Python and not any other language?
That's a really good question. When the publisher for that book approached me, they approached me for this topic because I used to share a lot more on Instagram, and part of what I would share on Instagram are simpler explanations. I'm sorry. And so the way that I wrote those explanations, I guess, very much resonated with this type of book. And so that's why I decided to take on that challenge. I didn't set out to say, yes, I'm definitely, that's whole goal is to write a book for kids, because it's very difficult to do that. You need to keep in mind that these are kids, right?
Right.
Kids may not have as much focus on things, especially with books. There are a lot of challenges to make sure you write the book in a way that's engaging and captivating, and still you make the reader of it want to stick on. So in that sense, for me, it was very much a challenge to say, is there a way I can not only make explanations clear and simple, but also fun enough that a kid would want to continue reading and continue wanting to learn Python? And that's pretty much the essence of why I wrote the book. And I'm hoping that you're one example that I did not a bad job, a decent job.
Oh yeah, definitely. You did a great job. I loved your book. You include the fun activities as well, which I still remember, and it really gets you like hooked onto it because it makes it so much more fun to, really learn what you're trying to teach the kids from that book. So also, like, how long did the process take you, and from like writing to editing to publishing the book?
That book took me, I would say, about a year from beginning to end. So that's actually quite fast for writing a book. But yeah, it was a very fast-paced cadence. We had chapter deadlines, you had activity deadlines, and going through them: first draft, second draft, technical draft, making sure the reviews, not only from the copy editor but also a technical editor, to make sure all the code was correct.
Right.
All of that went into play, but it took about a year, which, again, if anybody is planning on writing a book, that's very fast. That's like, you need to either focus on it full time, but for me, I was also working full time, so it was especially busy for me to write that book.
How did you find the time to manage, full-time work and the book?
I don't know where I found the time, but sometimes, it would get very busy, and it would get very stressful, if I'm being honest, because you have your deadlines and expectations at work, and then you also have these deadlines. So you have to make the time. So either a little hour or two after work every day would really help, and then there were certainly a few weekends that were, I don't want to say sacrifice. Oh, I'll say sacrifice, because sometimes you can't, go out and have dinner or go do some other activity that you want to do. Sometimes you need to scope out that weekend to have a little bit more time to find the time to write.
Yeah, and would you say like the time management was the most difficult part of writing the book, or is there any other part?
That's one aspect of it. So, of course, some people are very good at that, and that's no problem. And even with myself, there were pockets of time that I said, okay, this is where I should do it. So, but yes, it was certainly one of the harder aspects. The most difficult part of writing was the writing. So there's this, first draft that you kind of pour out onto the document, and then you say, okay, that's great, but now rewrite that so that a kid will understand. And then not only that, okay, now a kid understands it, now rewrite it so it's actually interesting and fun. And then, okay, now craft an activity around that will help solidify what they just learned. So that part was probably the most difficult.
Okay. I mean, I think it would be like a dream for me to be able to write a book, whether it be about coding or just, like a fictional storybook. Is there like any tips you recommend for someone who's trying to write one?
That is so great to hear. Find something that you really enjoy, because you have much more passion and much more. Even though it might seem hard to get through writing it, you'll always come back to it because you want to finish the job. So one example I like to give is, if there's a certain thing that is about you, try to inject that in the book. So for example, I explained JavaScript methods using desserts. And that's something, again, keep it fun, keep it light, keep it in a way that not only describes you, but is also a little bit different. Right. Another thing I will say is sometimes people kind of get, I don't want to say intimidated, but they are like, well, why should I write something or create something? Because there's so many other people who have already written on this particular topic or have done this thing already. And they're like, what would I bring if I were to do it myself? And they won't bring your voice. They won't explain it the way you explain it. They won't see it the way you see it. So that's why you see so many different resources on so many different things. And so keeping that in mind and not letting that sway you, if there's really a book or idea that you want to bring about, you'll definitely have a good chance at creating something special if it's something that you enjoy.
Yeah, that's true. Hopefully I am able to write a book and publish it one day. And you mentioned about how you use the desserts in your fun activities. And that's actually like a very vivid memory to me, because I would get very hungry when I was reading the book because I would be coding and doing other fun activities. But it just made it so fun, which is why I really wanted to, have the video series for the book, because it was just a great resource. And if for all of you guys who are watching this podcast as well, I mean, that book is just amazing. If you're someone who's looking into starting to learn how to code, especially in Python, then I would definitely recommend to pick up Miss Adrienne Tacke's book, Coding for Kids in Python. It's amazing. And also, I heard that you're working on another book recently called Looks Good to Me. Is there anything you'd like to share about that book?
Yes, so as you can see, I'm an overachiever and didn't have enough of the first book. But yes, I'm writing another book. This is on the process of code reviews. So earlier I mentioned how things kind of broke in production because we didn't have this process. And this is a very key part in software development. It's very similar to when you write a book and you have somebody review it to make sure there's no spelling or grammar errors. They want to make sure that it flows well, make sure there's nothing incorrect about it. It's the same thing that we do in software development. When you write code, someone ideally looks at that code and make sure there's no bugs, there's no typos, there's nothing that could possibly go wrong when you merge that code with the rest of the larger code base, the thing that makes up the whole application. And in my over 10 years of being a software developer, I've been on many different teams where this process was either non-existent, really, really good, or really, really bad. And that kind of led me to say I should put all of my experiences and learnings together into a single book, because right now there's no book that's like a standard for the software development industry, and that excited me. I'm like, maybe I could write the book on this thing, which is so important to software development. So so that's what I'm doing now, and I'm almost done with it, actually.
Awesome. How do you do it? I mean, you're so inspiring. You've published a book and you're already working on another one. It's amazing.
It's just, like I said, it's finding the time. Every now and then, after a big project like this, I do try to take some breaks and not do anything for like a few months. Yeah. I think that's how I balance it out. But then in the end, I'm always like, okay, what do I do now? I have an itch to do something else. So that's maybe how I drive myself to do these other things.
That's amazing. amazing. And it's definitely important to get the breaks in between as well.
Yes, very much.
All right, so is there any message that you have for all the young coders out there who are watching this video?
Yes, keep going. And specifically with like ChatGPT and AI, because I know that's the thing right now, that is something I really hope that those that are learning, they use it to just help their learning. So it's very tempting to kind of say, hey, AI, write for me, write the code for me. And that's fine, but that can be misused, and it doesn't really help you when you are learning to code. So if my only advice in this day and age is to try to use those tools to help you better understand your learning. One example I'll give is, let's say there's a topic that you're finding really hard to understand in programming. Use the power of AI to explain it in the way that you wish that you wanted. So you're like, hey, let's say a prompt in ChatGPT, if you're having trouble, say, understanding loops in Python, for example, say, can you explain Python loops to me as desserts, or in the style of Star Wars? Or can you tell me a story that explains how loops work and make sure a 10-year-old would understand it? If you'd use it in that way, I think it's a very powerful tool for you to get past those hurdles, because sometimes some resources are just very dry and you're like, I don't get it, I don't understand it. But I think that's a really, really great way to use ChatGPT and other tools like that to help further your learning. So that would be my advice. And then keep having fun with it, And then the last piece is, that's one thing that I do see a lot, is a lot of the younger generation, they kind of feel like they have to learn it. And it's like a hot take, but like if you've done it and you're trying and you've really given it a try and you feel like you just don't like it, it's okay. It's okay to not force yourself to continue learning to code or learning to do something else.
Right.
That's okay. Maybe find a different avenue down it. Maybe if you didn't like working strictly with coding, but you do like working with, say, robots or Lego robots, and that's the way that you find fun in it, then it's okay to, again, switch to something that interests you a bit more. So those would be my pieces of advice for young coders today.
Thank you so much. That's wonderful pieces of advice. And like you said about ChatGPT, it can be very helpful. I mean, a lot of companies these days are definitely using it to make their websites and all sorts of things. But it can also be a little bit of a distracting tool, because we think that it's right there, so we try and use it for things. But I feel like for using it for advice, or like kind of like a mentor online, is a good way of using it as well. But yeah, it was great talking to you. Thank you so much for joining today. If you want, we can go ahead and look at the comments to see if anyone has any questions. If you guys do have any questions, please feel free to ask me or Miss Adrienne, and we'll be happy to answer them. But if not, then we can go ahead and end the live right here.
Thanks so much. It's been fun being on here.
Thank you so much, Miss Adrienne, for joining. It's an honor to have you on here. Hope we can do this again another time.
No problem. I'll be back.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much. I hope to talk to you soon.
Thanks.
Bye.